Hi, it's Jen here from Jen's Homemadeology, and today we're going to be making the Pandora Charisma, the extension of the Pandora series. The Pandora Charisma is a sleek and adaptable convertible sling bag. Just craft it with maximum storage space. The Pandora Charisma features a beautiful front panel that can accent a fussy cut placement. It also features a hidden zipper pocket. There is the front compartment with a very wide access opening that has a full panel zipper pocket that's mesh. Full panel mesh zipper pocket. A back slip pocket, a key leash, and that nice open wide compartment in the front. Our back panel also features a zipper pocket, a back compartment pocket that has a slip sleeve that's great for tablets, a zipper pocket, and then a three-dimensional pocket. Great for cords, and then a pencil or even a stylus sleeve. The back panel features the different ways of carrying. So there's 2 D-rings across the bottom, so you can adjust which side you're carrying on. You can change your carrying style from a fully detachable strap to even a buckle strap. You can still adjust which side you want to carry it on. And there's also a fully attached strap that would feature a D-ring, and then another version of a detachable strap that just would be the normal way without the tab attachments. So with this, you can do a back carry, or you can wear it on the front. And you can also take it and attach your straps to your side, and that will be a side carry. Now, if you are doing the release buckle, you do not need to do the D-ring attachment, as one would most likely prefer to wear it as a crossbody bag. Between the different styles of carry and the 4 different compartments of your front panel, your interior front panel, your back panel, and your interior back panel, you can customize this bag to suit your needs and ensure that you are always prepared. In addition, you can omit the back zipper compartment for a faster sew. And this pattern is completed using a binding method, which helps add structure to the bag. This is the one that we will be making in this tutorial today. We are going to go ahead and walk through our pattern pieces and supplies needed to make this bag. Now we're going to walk through all the pattern pieces and the supply materials needed for the Pandora Charisma. First up is your piece A, which is your front panel exterior. Now for this piece, if you want to have a fussy cut placement on the pattern piece, there is the places so you can work your fussy cut. But essentially you don't want your middle of your piece to actually be the middle because there's a hidden pocket on this side, so your middle of it gets shifted a little bit. So if you're doing your cut list, I would recommend to at least cut out this pattern piece so that way you can do your fussy cut placement if you're one that likes to do those. And you need 2 of piece A1, which is your pocket linings for your front panel. And then 1 of A2, which is your side accent. And then 1 of A3, which is your bottom accent. And then you also need a piece of ZA and your zipper tab ZT1. Also need 2 main panel stabilizers AA, which these are a heavy stabilizer. This is the Sewfisticated foam. And this is the premium, so it's the 2.7 millimeter. Now for the back panel, you need 1 of piece B. And then one of the things I would like to note for piece B is that for your back panel, if you are doing the zipper pocket that's on the back, which I will be doing in the tutorial, you just want to be conscientious about your zipper box and where it's going to be on your back, just in case you have a print back here or you do some type of design. That way it doesn't interfere with where your zipper pocket goes. Piece B1, which is your back panel lining. I'm going to do 2 different materials, and I'm going to have my print down so that way when I undo my zipper, you'll see some fun print peeking through it. And then you also need ZB for your zipper. Your zipper gusset, you need 1 of piece C, 2 of C1, 1 of C2, which is a very long piece because it's your lining to your gusset. Piece Z3, which is also a long piece. This is your heavyweight stabilizer for your zipper gusset. And again, this is that 2.7 millimeter Sewfisticated foam. Piece ZC, your base D, your base D1 lining, D2, which is another heavy stabilizer. These will be pieces for your back zipper gusset, your DD base, your DD base, your DD1 base lining, and then your DD2 heavy stabilizer piece. And along with another long zipper of ZD. For our interior pieces, we will need 4 pieces of piece E. I have 3 lining pieces, and then I'm gonna do a piece of the 3D air mesh for my back panel that has that sleeve pocket that can hold a tablet. So that way there's a little extra padding that goes into protection. But you can just do 4 lining pieces. You don't have to do the air mesh. 1 piece of EE. Now this is a lightweight stabilizer. This is I have a 1mm adhesive foam. And this is for the middle section divider, and you don't want this to be a thick piece, because then this will end up making your final assembly very difficult. If this is just too firm, then your bag won't be able to get up underneath your machine. It'll just be a more difficult of a sew. If you do a heavyweight, piece E1, which is a fabric mesh, and then you will need EZ1, which is your zipper, and then your ZT2, which is your zipper tab. And this will make your mesh pocket on your front panel interior. And then also on that front pocket interior, you will need 2 of E2 for a slip pocket. And then in your back compartment, you will need 2 pieces of E3 along with zipper ZE3 for your zipper pocket that's on the back panel. Now your other pieces for your sleeve pocket, so you need 2 pieces of E4 along with piece E5 if you want to make a more padded sleeve for your tablet. Also need piece E6, which is definitely recommended to do a lightweight material, because this is going to be for your 3D pocket that's on the back compartment. Piece F, which is for your key leash, which is again recommended to do a lightweight material, so that way you can reduce your bulk. And then 6 pieces of piece H. I have 2 that I cut in pink, because 2 are going to be for your back compartment, and then 4 of them in this vibrant hue for the front compartment. And that way it will make it easier when following along the tutorial to see which ones are going where. This is also recommended to use a lightweight material for. You need 2 pieces of G, which is your top strap connector tabs. And then 3 pieces of G1. 2 of these will be for your back panel for the D-rings on the bottom. And then 1 of these will be for those D-rings that are on the sides of the bag of your gusset. If you are thinking about not doing those D-rings along the zipper gusset, then you could eliminate using that. So need bias tape. I have my pre-made. This is the 1/2 inch, but it's 1 inch when not folded. Your webbing. It's recommended to use 1.5 inch webbing, but you could use 1 1/4 or even 1 inch. The 1 inch won't be as comfortable if you are making it to carry tablets. You will need anywhere from 7 to 16 of the rivets, which is a optional piece, but they do allow for more security to your bag. So need a minimum of 4 D-rings, unless you're not going to do the D-rings on your gusset for a side carry. You could eliminate those and just use the 2 that are on the back panel. Along with a 3/4 swivel hook. This is for your key leash. And then any tags or labels that you will want to use. I do have a tag to put in the bag, but I don't have a label. And then if you are doing all the zippers, that come with the bag. There's 8 pulls in total. 2 of the zippers get double pulls. So that's a total of 6 pockets. This pattern offers multiple ways to make the strap, allowing you to customize them to suit your needs. There are 2 versions of a detachable strap, and then there's a version 3 using a rectangular ring, which is a fully attached strap, or option 4, which uses a release buckle, which I like to refer to as a semi-attached strap. As with the release buckle, you can remove it. The strap just can't be used as a crossbody strap. Now, for all options, ensure that your slider matches your width of the webbing for proper functionality. Here's the difference between what a D-ring connector is. This is one that you would use for the detachable straps. This is the release buckle. As you see, the strap does disconnect and is not fully attached as if you were to use a rectangular ring, which is why I call it the semi-detachable strap. Now let me walk you. Here is a detachable strap. This is the normal way of doing a crossbody strap. So it uses the 2 swivel hooks and a slider, all of which matches the webbing width. You can also do a detachable strap using webbing. I already cut it into the 2 pieces for step 64 of the instructions. You do this method, you would also need a slider the size of your webbing, a rectangular ring, which is also the size of your webbing. I simply just took an extra slider and removed this bar to make my ring. And then I'm going to use 2 1-inch D-rings that are smaller than my webbing size. So in turn, I will need 2 pieces of G3 of the right width, because these are 1.5-inch ones for my webbing. There's also 1.25 for smaller webbing if you did that. So this is your second option for the detachable strap and the hardware and supplies that you would need. You can also do rivets on these. I'm just going to do a box stitch. The third option for a strap, which would be to do a attached strap. That would require your rectangular ring that's attached to your connector to be the same size as your webbing. And then you would need your 1 swivel hook, your slider, and that would be made the same way as doing a regular strap, but instead of having your swivel hook here, this would then be attached to the bottom part of your rectangular ring. Now this is smaller webbing than this because I don't have any 1 or 1.5-inch swivel hooks. Now your fourth strap is your attached strap, which you would need the other part of your release buckle, a slider that matches your webbing, and then a swivel hook, which you can either use the same as your webbing, or you can use a 1-inch and then grab one of the G3 tab connectors of the appropriate size for your webbing. And then your webbing that matches the length of the wearer. And that would be the supplies for the attachable strap with buckle. Now, if by chance, if you're doing the attached strap with buckle and you do not have a slider that's the size of your webbing, you can use a piece of elastic around your webbing for a pull strap adjuster just to hold that into place. Now let's get sewing our Pandora Charisma. Now, your first step would be to attach your logo tag onto piece A if you have one. I do not. So you can follow the steps in step 1. Now, there is no specific placement for your logo tag. There's a suggested positioning in step 1. And so you can either place it on your front panel, or you can actually place it onto your bottom exterior accent piece too. So that would be up to your discretion what you would like to do. So I'm going to go ahead and place this aside since I don't have a logo tag. We're going to start off taking our ZA zipper and our ZT1 zipper tab along with a pull. I'm going to singe my ends of my zipper tape. Now you can slip your pull on. Now we are going to take this and cut it into 4 equally even pieces. And now you're going to take 2 of those and sandwich your zipper tape into it. So your right side will be touching your zipper tape on both ends. And then you do the same thing on the other side. Sandwiching your zipper tape with your zipper tabs. Now we are going to sew along each of these sides with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now you can go ahead and press those open. Now you can baste around the perimeter of our tabs with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now our zipper tab is completed. Now you can customize the zipper opening side, and the instructions it showed on the left. But if you are a person that likes to carry your bag on your right shoulder, then you can go ahead and switch your accent panel to the right side. Now you're going to take your front panel, piece A, and mark the marking on step 3, or you can take the markings from your pattern piece, and you're going to mark on the top and the bottom. If you go ahead and snip, you want to snip no more than your 1/8 basting allowance. I just took a piece of chalk and marked it. You are going to align your zipper along the side, making sure that your zipper closure is pointing towards the top of your panel so that your zipper closes upwards. And then you're going to align your zipper and zipper tab along that edge. Now we're going to baste this with that 1/8 seam allowance. Now we're going to, after we baste on that and ensured our zipper is facing upwards, you're going to take one of your lining pieces A1 and align it along the edge, right sides down. So your panel will be right side up, but your pocket lining be right side down. So those are right sides together. Now you're going to sew with a 1/4 seam allowance. We're going to snip our corners. Turn our fabric right side out. And we're going to flatten the seams. Now we're going to top stitch just this seam that we just pressed down to our lining. You're going to top stitch that with the 1/8. And once that's pressed back, flip to the wrong side, you're going to take your other piece of A1 and you're going to lay that right side down. Along the raw edge of that zipper. I'm going going to baste that with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now you want to lay out your panel so that you can trim down your pocket linings to match. Now you can stitch these together with a 1/4 seam allowance. And away when your pockets open. It will lay flat. Now we take our piece A2 and attach this accent to the zipper. And I'll place it right side down along the top of the zipper. We're going to sew this with a 1/4 seam allowance. Snip off the corners. And this out, and then top stitch with a 1/8 seam allowance. There's that. Now we're going to press and fold along our marking. And fold along that marking. Now you're going to top stitch this folded edge with a 1/8 seam allowance. Once that's top stitch, that will essentially lay over top of your zipper. You just want to make sure that it covers your zipper. And now we are going to baste that in place. Your hidden zipper pocket. You will take piece A3 and align it with your bottom edge. I sew this with a 1/4 seam allowance. Snip off our seam allowance corners. And press this down. And then you will top stitch along that joined seam. There's our completed front panel. Our zipper pocket. Now moving on to the back panel assembly. During the back panel assembly is when you will need to decide what type of carrying strap you are going to be using. If you are going to have someone that's wearing it that prefers that to be able to carry this bag as a crossbody sling, then you will not want to do, then it's not recommended to use a release buckle for the style of strap carrying to ensure that the strap can easily be adjusted from a shoulder strap to a sling. Because if you do a release buckle with it and they want to do the crossbody style, then you would have to provide a separate strap for them to be able to do that. We are going to start off with our D-ring tabs. 2 of these will be for the back panel, and then the other one will be set aside for later for our D-rings that go on the side of our bag. Which, if you do the buckle, release buckle, and you don't want to have the side strap carrying, then you don't even need to do this one. But we're going to go ahead and show the side strap things, and you'll need the 2 D-rings to prepare for those. You will want to start off by finding your center down your long edge, and you would want to fold in to meet that center point. And then repeat for your other 2. Now we can baste around these with a 1/8 seam allowance. this will go this one. This will go for this one. And then this one will be set aside for later. If you are doing the detachable strap style, you will need your piece G2. And you will do the same as in step 8 and find your middle. And then fold in to meet your edges. And I'll baste around this with a 1/8 seam allowance. We'll either take your D-ring or your rectangular ring, whichever you are using for your detachable strap, and place that in, and then baste this with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now for the connector strap, you will take your 2 pieces of G, and then if you're using a D-ring, go ahead and place that in. Or you would take 4 inches of webbing and attach it around the bar of your buckle or ring, and then baste that onto it. So you would have webbing through here and attach that to the middle. I'm going to go ahead and do the D-ring. You want to take one of your pieces of G and take your D-ring and attach it in the middle with a 1-inch overhang of your G2. And we are going to baste that on. Now you can take your other piece of G and place it right sides together. We're going to sew up the 2 sides and the short top, leaving the wide bottom open. And you're going to sew with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now, either which way, whether or not you're doing the D-ring or release buckle, just make sure that your buckle and stuff is pulled all the way down, just to keep it as much as you can out of your sewing area to make your sewing easier. We're going to trim our seam allowance corners. Trim those corners, and then also kind of trim off those corners of corners, just to help those edges lay. Now there won't be as much bulk in those corners. And now you can press your seams out and then top stitch around the perimeter with a 1/8 seam allowance. And then there's that. And then if you did your one with a release buckle with the webbing, it would look like this. So this webbing would be in replace of the D-ring tab. And then there's the... Now for the back panel exterior, we're going to start making our zipper box. You need your piece B right side up, and then you want to take one of your B1 linings, wrong side up, and place it on the marking on step 12 that I tell you to place it down at. And then you will take the measurement in step 12 that will tell you to measure up from the bottom to where the base of your zipper box will start. And then from there, you can measure up the distance of your zipper box away from your side panel from the distance stated in step 12. Or you can take your pattern piece, and I like to take and pop little holes in the 4 corners, and then flip it over to the wrong side, and then just line it up and take my pen and mark into it. And then I'll get my little dots, and I just drew a line up connecting those lines. Now I can go ahead and stitch along those 2 lines to create my zipper box. And now we're going to want to cut a slit in the middle along with our inverted V, not cutting into any of our stitches. Now you go ahead and turn out your pocket lining. Now you can either go ahead and take double-sided tape in order to help smooth out your zipper pocket in order to get a nice edge, or you can go ahead and baste a 1/8 seam along this thing just to your lining. And you do a tacking stitch. Do it to the other side. Just want to ensure that everything is out of the way and you're just getting your lining and that one piece of the exterior. There's that. Now you'll want your ZV zipper and a pull. Singe my zipper ends. Place on my zipper. I'm going to take double-sided tape and place it down both edges of my zipper. Now, you'll want to make sure that your zipper is facing upway for closure. And remove your tape. And then position the zipper in the middle. And now we're going to sew around this box with the 1/8 seam allowance. And then there's that zipper. Now you're gonna go ahead and flip this over to the back side and take your other piece of B1, and you're going to place that wrong side up. And match your edges of your lining. So that way, that will be your zipper pocket. Now we want to sew all the sides with a 3/4 seam allowance. And then we're gonna trim the pocket seam allowance down to a 5/16. Now you can trim down your pocket. And I cut into some zipper tape, so I'm just going to singe that a little bit. Okay. And now that zipper pocket is finished. Now we are going to attach our strap connector / D-ring tabs to the bottom back of our panel. If you are using a fusible stabilizer on your linings, like the Decaville, then you will want to adhere straps of stabilizer on your bottom part. If you are doing a sewn in stabilizer, you can go ahead and base that around and attach it with a 1/8 seam allowance to keep it in place. Or you can go ahead and, if you're using a adhesive foam, go ahead and take your piece of AA and attach that now. And just want to make sure that your pocket lining is smoothed out if you're attaching it to this. And take that off to the side. You will want to take our 2 D-ring connectors that we made earlier, and I'll mark the middle of them. You're going to want to mark your seam allowance of 3/8 away on both sides of that center mark, and that's so that you don't end up hitting into your D-ring while you're sewing. take a small piece of double-sided tape and place it underneath those markings. This will then help keep the tab from moving around. And then you can slide your D-ring temporarily into place. Now you can either take the markings from step 18, or you can take your pattern piece and mark your markings for the side connector. Here, I'm just going to mark that center since I already have this out. Okay. Now you can undo your double-sided tape, and you essentially just want to line up the anchor strap so that your edges meet those lines, but the edge of your strap connector still hangs over a little bit on the top and the bottom. And then you can press that down and you can stick the other one on too. Again, putting your strap on top of the marking, but still ensuring that your top and your bottom just hang over that a little bit. Now we're going to go ahead and top stitch along these. I'm going to top stitch inside of my stitch lines from earlier, and then I'm going to stop at those markings that I made and then sew across and then sew back down. I'm going to top stitch with a 1/8 seam allowance. And now you want to repeat the same things for the other side.
If you're using rivets, you would want to take the measurement in step 19 and measure from the middle of your piece. So that's where your rivet will go. And then you'll have one on the top and the bottom of each side. You will need to take your strap connector and center it in the middle top of the panel. And we are going to base this on with the 1/8 seam allowance. And you can add a rivet in the middle of that. Go ahead and attach those rivets. Now you go ahead and move on to your side gusset assembly. So you take your 6 pieces of piece H. We're going to start off with taking 2 of them. And you want to place those right sides together. We're just going to sew 2 of these right along that bottom edge with a 3/8 seam allowance. Trim this down by half. Turn those right sides out. And then we're going to top stitch the perimeter of each of these with a 1/8 seam allowance. You're going to take these 2 and fold them in half. Now you're going to top stitch along that folded edge with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now you'll have 2 gussets that look like these. Now these are your smaller back gussets for the back compartment. Now you'll take your remaining 4 gussets and fold them again down in half. But this time you'll sew across the bottom N along one side. I like to place clips along my side so I know which sides I am sewing. And then I can batch sew these a whole lot quicker. Now that I have all 4 of these clipped, I'm going to sew along all the bottoms and one of the long sides with a 3/8 seam allowance. Scissors, because now we're going to trim the seam allowance. Now we can turn these right side out. He must start to poke out the corners. And you'll want to flatten the seams. Now we are going to top stitch the bottom and the open raw side. This is technically you're basting across that part. And then you're going to top stitch along the top. And you'll do that to each of them. Now again, top stitch along the top. You want to stitch up this open side and then down across the bottom. You do not want to stitch across your join seam, long join seam. Now you'll have 4 of these that have the joined edge not top stitched. There's those 4. And these will be for the front panel. I'm going to clip them together just so I don't lose them. I want to place these aside for right now. Moving on to the front compartment assembly, we're going to start off with our key leash. So you'll need piece F. And on the wrong side of the fabric, you're going to want to mark the markings in step 22, placing double-sided tape along the 2 long edges and the 1 short edge with your marking. We're going to remove the double-sided tape from our short edge first, bringing it in to meet our line. And then doing our 2 longer edges. I like to take those corners and press those down and in versus trimming them. Every time that I trim them, they end up having some raw edge stick out. So I just butterfly them, I guess, in. Okay, and now we're going to want to fold this in half. You're going to take your swivel hook and attach it to the bottom. And then fold it over per the second half of step 22. I like top stitching with this side facing out, which is technically the back side, so that way I can catch that. Now we're going to top stitch around with a 1/8 seam allowance. And there's our finished key leash. You can go ahead and add a rivet in the middle of this if you would like. We're going to take our slip pockets E2 for our front panel compartment, and you will want to place those right sides together. And then along the top edge, we will sew with a 1/4 seam allowance. And then trim the seam allowance corners. And turn right side out. and top stitch along this with a 1/8 seam allowance. So take one of your pattern piece E's and place that right side up. Keep in mind, if you're having a different color for your front compartment versus your back compartment, this is your front piece. Now you're going to align that along the bottom and the sides. But you'll want to trim around the rounded corners, and you'll want to round out the corners of your pocket so it makes it easier to sew with the right side up. Make sure your pocket is flat and smooth. Now you're going to baste around with a 1/8 seam allowance. And then you will want to take your key leash and attach it away from the distance from the side as stated in step 23. So I'm going to go ahead and baste that on. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my rivet on too. Now I've placed this off to the side. Now I can work on my mesh pocket. So we're going to repeat the same process as we did in step 2 to create our front zipper as this zipper. So you'll need ZE1 and our ZT2. With our zipper pull. I'm going to cinch my edges. On my pull. Okay, gonna cut this into 4 equal parts, just like in step 2. I'm gonna sandwich my zipper in between it. And I'm going to sew again with that 3/8 seam allowance on both sides. And turn these pieces right sides out. Now I'm going to top stitch around them with the 1/8. there's that. We're going to take our piece E1, our mesh fabric, and cut down the amount stated in step 25. Now once you cut your mesh down from the top edge, which would be like this, of the amount stated in step 25, you will go ahead and take your binding over those edges. Now you can also place a strip of double-sided tape on your binding if you would like. Have a tag that you would like to use. You want to make sure, if you have a tag that you want to use, you are going to go ahead and place it on the bottom part of your mesh pocket underneath your binding. And that you want to make sure that it's away from the edge stated in step 25, so that way it doesn't get stuck in a seam. We're going to take our zipper that we made, oh, look at that. Remove your tape backings, and then you can center this along there. Oop. Clips. And now you want to stitch across here and then along the bottom. I'm going to do a 1/8 seam allowance along the top and the bottom of my binding. On one side, and we repeat the same for the top. You can go ahead and take your scissors and cut off the excess of your zipper tape tab and any bias tape that you have or binding. Now you're going to take another piece of your piece E And you want to place that right side up. And you want to start connecting it and lining it up from the top. Because you are going to have a little bit of excess that you will trim off. And since mesh likes to move and shift, I'm just gonna clip it in place. Now, I will say if you are using different colors for your piece E for your front and back panels, then you will want to use the piece that's decided for your front. You can trim the bottom part of our mesh off to line up with our panel. And I'm going to baste around with a 1/8 seam allowance. And if you had any more shifting of your mesh during the process, you can trim that off. Make sure your pocket lays flat. You will want to take 2 of the 4 of your side gussets and either take the placement marking from step 27 or the placement marking that's on your pattern piece B. And then you're gonna line your raw edge, which will be the edge that we basted down. You're gonna line the bottom part of your gusset up to the marking that we made. And repeat that on this side. And now you can baste these into place. There's one of your completed panels. Now we're going to move on to our back compartment pocket. So you're going to need your 2 pieces of E4. I'm going to place those right sides together. And you're going to sew along your top edge and your bottom edge. You sew with a 1/4 seam allowance. And we're going to snip our seam allowance corners. And turn this right side out. And that's it. We're gonna top stitch along those two joined seams. Okay, now I'm gonna top stitch these two seams and baste along the sides. If you are doing a padded slip sleeve, then you will need to stick in your piece of E5. We'll close up this side. Now we can take our piece E, which I'm using the 3D mesh for my back panel that goes along with my slip sleeve. You want to take the markings from piece B or from step 29, or where the bottom of that pocket should be. And you're going to line it along the sides. And now we're going to baste along the two sides. Now you do not want to sew across the bottom. This will be your slip sleeve for your tablet. Now we will want to take our two folded and sewn gussets. You're going to want to press them open so that your stitch side is towards the panel. Now again, you are going to take your markings from your piece B for where your gussets will go. And this is just so you're not having so many seams one top of each other. Essentially the bottom of this will go right above the seam of the sleeve, the slip sleeve. And then you just want to line one of the raw edges up. Press open this, and you grab some tape so I can tape that open, and then do the same thing for the other side. So there's your stitch together seam, taking one of the raw edges, and those will be open. And now you can baste these on. I'm going to grab some tape and tape those. tape those open so that way later it doesn't get caught in the seam too soon. This pocket is completed, and we can move on to the zipper pocket of your back compartment. Now we're going to do our zipper pocket for the back compartment. So you'll need piece E along with your 2 pieces of E3, which is your zipper pocket lining, your ZE3, which is your zipper, and then a pull. So once you have singed your zipper ends and added your pull, we are going to transfer the zipper box markings from either pattern piece 3, or you can take the measurements from step 30 for your zipper box. I'm going to go ahead and transfer those markings onto the wrong side of one of my piece E's. So again, I just go ahead and take my pattern piece and just make those little dots. And once I get those dots my thing, then I line up my roller and connect them. Just to make it quick and easy. You're going to take your pattern piece E, which would be your last one of that, and you're going to place your lining down the measurement in step 30. And now we're going to follow the steps that we did for our back panel exterior, which were done in steps 12 through 15 in order to complete our zipper pocket. So first going to sew along these 2 lines, stopping at our points. And then you take your scissors or seam ripper or however you want to open up your zipper pocket. So going down the middle. And creating that V without snipping into any of your stitches. And you're going to turn your lining through that opening. I'm going to press these seams, and then I'm going to do that back tacking that we did earlier. Just going to stitch this along this line to my liner, 1/8 of an inch away from your stitch line. You can also just use double-sided tape. Now, if you're using materials that you can press, you can give this a nice press with your iron if you would like. I'll take my zipper and place double-sided tape along the top edge and the bottom edge of it. I can remove my covers to my tape. I'm going to want my zipper closing to my left to match the rest of my bag. I'm going to line my bottom side where I want it. And then do my top. Now you can stitch around this box with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now remember those back tackings I did, or the tacking downs that I did of the lining. Once your zipper's in, you can't see those marks from before. Now I'm not going to back tack as I'm going to pull my threads through. There's our zipper box. Using this white lining probably wasn't the smartest of things for me to do. And you can trim your excess zipper. And I'm doing that. I have to re-singe my zipper ends. And now, once you trim your remaining part of your zipper, you can go ahead and take your other piece of E3, align it to your other zipper box. And we're going to sew along our pocket with a 3/4 seam allowance. And as we do so, we're going to keep the main lining out of the way. And just like before, you're going to trim that pocket down. There's that. Okay, now you can go ahead and put this off to the side. Our 3D pocket, which is piece E6. Now you're going to take this and place it, hold it down so it's right sides together. And we're going to sew along the 2 short sides. Along with a little bit into the bottom side where we're joining our ends. I'm going to leave about say about a 3.5 to 4 inch gap. There's a measurement in step 32 for you to leave. Just gonna wing it. You just want to make sure that you have enough room to birth it. You're gonna go ahead and sew around this down the side, leaving this open at the bottom, and back up the side with a 1/4 seam allowance. Look at that. I want chicken bobbin. Yeah. Now, I just left these strings connected just because it made it easier than cutting and reattaching and all that jazz. Now you're going to trim your seam allowance corners, not going into any threads. Turn this right side out. going to close up this seam at the bottom. And then you can also use double-sided tape on that seam if you would like. Now we're going to top stitch this opening close, and this will be the top edge of that 3D pocket. I'm going to top stitch with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now with that done, you're going to want to take the first placing marking on step 33 and draw a line down, and this will be the separation between the pocket. And then you're going to need your panel with the zipper that we just made. I'm going to fold up your pocket lining so that it does not get caught. And then we are going to place this pocket in the placement that's stated in the second part of step 33. There's a distance that it wants you to be from the side, and then also the bottom. And then we're going to stitch along just this one side with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now you're going to want to repeat the same thing on the other side. And keep in mind that this pocket will not lay flat for the time being, as we are going to be making a 3-dimensional pocket on the one side. So again, we're going to go ahead, and once you have it lined up from the marking it wants you from your left, or from your side and from your bottom, you're going to stitch down with that 1/8 seam allowance. Now that we stitched those two, you're going to want to flatten this off to the one side. Stick a piece of tape there. Now what we're going to do is sew along this bottom edge within creating our 3-dimensional pocket, and we're also going to sew 2 rows of stitches along this marking. And that's done. Now, you could have done your stitch along the bottom and then gone back and did these 2 rows of stitches. I just go ahead and do it all in one stitch, but do what's easiest for you. Now you can untape and unclip your zipper lining. So there's your, one side's the 3D pocket and the other is a little pocket for like pens and things. Now all the interior compartment pockets are all completed. So it is recommended in the pattern that before you take a short break, let's assemble the interior and exterior panels together first. Here are all of our panels. Not clip those off. So I'm going to trim down my tabs. I'm going to take your front and back compartment linings. So your 3D pocket that we just made, this is the back, middle, and then the slip pocket with the key leash. And you're going to put those wrong sides together with your piece E sandwiched between those. Now I do have a adhesive foam, so I'm going to attach this, but you could just sandwich it between. I'm going to take this and these 2 together. I'm going to tuck this into my pocket just so it doesn't get stuck under. And now I'm going to baste these 2 together with a 1/8 seam allowance. And there's our center panel together. And then once this is in the bag and bind it, you won't be able to tell that there's that difference in the thing. I should have used a white stabilizer, but I didn't have the lightweight in white on hand. I'm gonna put that off to the side, and we're going to do our front panel exterior to our lining, our front panel to the lining, which would be our mesh pocket. Now, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you adhere your other piece of AA or stick it between your layers if you're doing a sew in one and you didn't baste it. I'm going to take these and line these together, making sure that your bottom of your panel and the bottom of your mesh are on the same side. Now you want to take your panels and line those up and clip around. Now this is the front panel that we will have to trim around the corners. I'm going to go ahead and baste around and baste with my mesh facing up so I can see where my curves are. Now we can trim off any additional fabric from the front panel. Now there's our finished front panel. Now we can take this panel and put it aside. And we're going to put our back panel together with the back panel lining. You want to ensure that the bottom of your back panel is to the bottom of the sleeve pocket, the side that has less of a gap. Again, you're going to meet these two together and then baste them together. And if you have a stabilizer that you're putting in versus an adhesive stabilizer, so if you have a sew-in foam that you're keeping out of your seam allowance and you're just sandwiching it in between, make sure you place that in now. Again, you want to make sure that you do not catch this part of the gusset into your seam. Make sure they're out of your seam allowance. And again, I'm going to baste this on with a 1/8 seam allowance. Those are basted together. Now that all of our panels are sandwiched together, And you most likely, if you've been sewing this whole time with me, you've been sewing for a while. So go ahead and take yourself a well-deserved break and come back for the assembly of the zipper gusset and the putting together of the bag. Okay. Now we're going to take the remaining D-ring tab that we made earlier, along with our 2 D-rings. We're going to take this and cut it in half. Slip that onto your D-rings. And then we're going to baste these in place with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now for your zipper gusset assembly, you need your 2 pieces of C1. You're going to align these D-ring tabs centered with the short top edge of C1, and then baste it on with a 5/8 overhang. And you can baste these on. And then you will need your piece C, which is your top of your zipper gusset, and you're going to align both of your tops of your side panel of the gusset. And then sew these together, making sure your D-ring is out of your sewing area. And sew these together with a 3/8 seam allowance. You can snip off your seam allowance corners. And then flip right side out. You want to flatten the seam and top stitch with a 1/8 seam allowance, and you want to flip this seam down towards that side panel. And now with the seam, you will most likely definitely need a hump jumper where that D-ring is. And now repeat on the other side, pressing that down towards the bottom. And again, top stitching. And then from the middle of your panel, you can place rivets down the seam allowance worth. So there's my middle. Oh, there are my rivet markings. I'm going to go ahead and put rivets in real quick. Now I placed in my rivets. You can tape over the back of them if you would like. Now, for clarity, we are going to now be referring to this as the zipper gusset. If you are using a sewn-in stabilizer, you can go ahead and baste it on now. I have a self-adhesive foam, so I'm going to attach that. And then if you have if you're using something like Decaville, then you would have adhered it to your lining. Now there's that. Now ideally you would want to put your foam on before putting in your rivets. However, I did not have any more long rivets, so I was not going to be able to make it through all those layers. So I attached mine after. You want to take your zipper ZC and attach 2 pulls to it. Singe my ends. Attach a pull on each side. And I have 2 pulls attached. I'm going to go ahead and attach my zipper right sides together with my zipper gusset. If you are using a directional print on your zipper gusset, make sure that it is facing upwards. So this would be the top of your print. And you're going to attach it to the bottom side of your gusset. Now your zipper will overhang a little bit on each end, just so you don't think it's a perfect fit. That will leave to your zipper being more stable. Again, a little bit of overhang. I'm going to baste this on with a 1/8 seam allowance. All that's basted on. And then after your zipper is attached, you will want to take your remaining 2 gussets and attach them with your raw edge towards the edge of the zipper, and you want to place it up from the end of the zipper gusset in the marking 1 step 44. And you will repeat the same on the other side, putting the bottom gusset towards the end of the zipper gusset. Now, before basting these on, you want to ensure that your gussets do not have any top stitching in the middle area. This part right here is the side that you want out. And repeat with the other. Now, before you attach your lining to your zipper gusset, ensure that you've attached your 2 gussets. This is very important. Now that our gussets are attached to our zipper gusset, you can take your piece C2 and attach it right sides down. If you are using a directional print, you would want it facing downwards. And then this is my right side going down against the right side of my exterior. And now you can sew your zipper gusset lining on with a 1/4 seam allowance. Now you can turn your lining right side out. You want to secure with clips so the fabrics are wrong sides together. I quickly went ahead and clipped my lining back just so it didn't slip any. Now we can go ahead and top stitch along our zipper and baste around our perimeter. You want to make sure that your gussets are out of your sewing area. So you want them exactly like this. that part of our completed zipper panel. Again, ensuring that you did not sew down your gusset. Now you will take your D1 zipper gusset lining, right side together with your lining. So right side. And we're going to base this on with a 1/8 seam allowance. And you can trim our excess zipper tape. I'm just going to cinch that to be safe. Now you can take your piece D, which is your exterior part of base, and place that right sides together. And now we can sew with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now we're going to sew these together with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now you can clip off the bottom corner seam allowance, and then you only want to remove the exterior top corner seam allowance. Now that those are clipped off, you will want to do the same thing for the other side of your gusset, starting with the lining first. So again, we are going to base this on with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now, you can either attach your exterior first, or you can trim down your zipper. I like to trim down my zipper first. Attach those right sides together. And then sew this with a 3/8 seam allowance. Again, clip our bottom corners and then only our exterior top corner. I'm going to go ahead and stick in my base stabilizer. I'm not going to use the self-adhesive part of it just because it's harder to get it in there right. So I'm just going to sandwich it. And then there is an optional additional stabilizer for here that you could stick in and make this base really firm. But if you have a domestic machine, it is not recommended to do the second optional stabilizer. We are now going to go ahead and baste around here with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now there's your completed front gusset. And we can set this off aside for now. Now we are going to do our back compartment zipper gusset assembly, which you will need your zipper ZD along with 2 of your zipper pulls, your piece DD, which is your exterior base, and then your DD1, which is your lining base, and then also your DD2, which is your stabilizer. And we're going to essentially repeat the steps 47 through 48 that we did for the front zipper gusset when attaching the base of the gusset. I'm going to cinch off my ends, put a zipper on each side. Start with my lining of DD1 and placing it right sides down against the back side of my zipper. So this is my right side of my lining. It's going down. I'm going to base that on with a 1/8 seam allowance. Then you're going to take your piece DD, place that right side down on the right side of your zipper. And I'll sew this with a 3/8 seam allowance. Now this time you're only going to want to snip your exterior fabric corners. And then repeat for the other side, ensuring that your zipper is not twisted. I'm going to base this on. Sewing this with a 1/8 seam allowance. Go ahead and bring around your exterior. And then you can ensure that once it's turned right side out, that nothing will be twisted. And then sew this with a 3/8. And now you will want to insert your DD2. Again, I'm just going to stick on in. Now I can baste around this. And really quickly ensure that your zipper is not twisted and that you have both your pulls on. Now at this point, all of your pieces should be used up minus your G3s if you are going to use your strap connectors. Now it's about putting everything together. We're going to start with our back panel assembly. So you'll need the zipper that we just made along with your back panel. The one that has your back panel, and then your sleeve pocket. Before we continue, I'm going to read off some of the key points that will help you with your assembly of your bag. We want to make sure that we are basting at the center points in order to help manage our sewing process. You can also staple within the seam allowance to help that too. You can reduce your stitch length around the corners to help achieve for a better rounded corner and to minimize on puckering. These pattern pieces are designed to fit without snipping into the zipper. So we do not want to snip into here. If it is necessary for some reason to go ahead and snip no more than 1/8 of an inch of the gusset of the zipper, and then use your lighter to make sure that you singe your zipper tape to prevent from fraying. I've never had to snip in to my zippers in any sophisticated pattern before, so you shouldn't have to do that, but it is in the notes just in case. You can use hemostats to help maneuver your tight corners, a hump jumper around uneven layers. It's very helpful to increase your needle size to either a 16/18, or even it is helpful to increase your needle size to a size 21 if you can, to help within the final assembly. I have an 18 in my machine, and I always use that size needle for everything. So I've never had the need to, but depending on your material choices, you might need to up your needle size. And always check that you are happy with your stitches before moving on to the next step. Okay, so let's get started. We want to ensure that our painter's tape is still holding our gussets open, because we do not want them sneaking their way into the seam, or else they won't. You have to undo it because you will end up closing these shut. So keep those open. We are going to flip over to the back panel, and I'm going to find my centers, since I did the talking and not the finding. And then we're going to put on our back zipper. Actually, oh, I marked them earlier in a previous step on that one. Okay, so I'm going to find the middle of my zipper gusset. I'll find both sides of it right now. You're going to place this down, so right sides of your exterior together, meeting those center points first. And when you do your top, make sure that your zipper is not twisted. Now you can work around and work in your zipper tape. Well, it is very helpful to work along your top and bottom straight edges first. And now I'm going to unzip my zipper to make the rest of lining this up a little easier. And gather my zipper tape together so it stays out of the way. And now that will help my zipper lay. There's that. And then you can go ahead and baste right here and right here to keep it centered. And then we're going to baste around this with a 1/8 seam allowance. One, two, three, four. And then there is that zipper. Now, before continuing, just make sure that your side gussets do not get sewn down. Now that we've got our back compartment zipper gusset attached, we can now do our binding. I'm going to use this pre-made binding and then work from the bottom around. I'm going to sew this side up, so I need it going this way. overhang. We'll clip this up out of the way. There's that. Now I can go around and sew with a 1/4 seam allowance. Take your little extra overhang and fold that back and over and cover up where you started. Inside. And other side. Lift up our zipper all the way around. We want to roll back that seam binding. Like doing it once after I do the roll binding, and then once my bag is fully put together, more rolling on. This will just help the bag lay better. There's that completed panel. Now we're going to attach our front zipper gusset to our back panel. I'm going to go ahead and turn my zipper gusset right side out to make this easier. And you're going to be attaching the back panel zipper to the zipper gusset without the side without the zipper on it. So what I like to do is to turn my zipper gusset right side out And then take your back panel piece with your exterior side facing down and your lining side facing up, and lift up your bottom back compartment base. And you're going to take this and place it right sides together with the exterior bottom base. So here's your bottom base of your back panel, and then here's your bottom base of your front. You're gonna place those right sides together, lining up those bottom gussets. And now you can unclip your zipper, and you're going to attach this around. First, I like to then match up my center point of my zipper and my panels that I marked earlier. And now I can clip my zipper all the way around. And once this is in place, you can go ahead and baste on your zipper with a 1/8 seam allowance. And now that it is basted on, you can go ahead and untape your back side gussets. Once you untaped your back side gussets, you want to take the placement from step 55 and mark down from your joined seam. I have my little marking right here, and you're going to pick up your back folded side gusset and meet it to that point. And then repeat on the other side. Now I'll go ahead and baste these on. Now your panel will look like this, looking down into it. Exterior, the reverse side of what it would look like. Keep that panel dropped down in there. Now, before you attach your center panel, this middle panel right here, before you attach this, make sure that you've attached those gussets to your zippered side. You're going to take your middle panel. Your 3D pocket one is going to go facing down, and your slip pocket with the key leash is going to be facing up. I'm going to quickly find my centers, as I did not do that on this panel. And the same, I'm just going to go ahead and drop this down in and meet those center points. And now I can clip this around. Now, I'll show you what it looks like with in the front view, sides, and then the other side view. So there are two different ways of sewing this on, and it kind of depends on your preference slash your sewing machine and your materials to decide which way that you're able to sew this. You can either sew it in a loop around, or you can sew with the panel face down. This can be a little trickier, especially if you've used very heavy stabilizers or you interfaced a lot, because it doesn't really allow the seam here to lay flat. But we're going to go ahead and base our center panel on with a 1/8 seam allowance. Now you want to make sure that you are happy with your stitches, especially around that zipper. It doesn't buckle any. Look like, then you turn this out after we bind that, and that would be your back compartment. Now, just like we did in step 53, we're going to attach our binding around. Now we can go ahead and sew along this seam with a 1/4 seam allowance. you can go ahead and check your stitches to make sure that you are happy with them. Now you can turn this out. So here's your view from the front side, and then your back compartment is finished. And you can zip that up. Attaching the middle part is the hardest part of this make, especially depending on how much you stabilize your bag. So it will be smooth sailing from this point on, really should be. Now, if you would like, especially if you've gotten frustrated at any point during the make, or just had a really tough workout with getting this back panel on, go ahead and take a little bit of break before you start the final assembly of attaching our front panel. Now, once you've marked your centers of your gusset and your panel, you can attach your panel. You'll want to take it and depending on which way you bend it, it helps to turn this so that the lining's facing out. There will just be less bag to maneuver. You'll want to make sure that your side gussets are out of the way for this. And take my tape from earlier and just tape those back and down. And you'll want to take it with your panel exterior down. I'm not sure. Points. Once I got my center points matched up, I then unzip my bag. You can unzip it beforehand too. I just find it more helpful to really line up your points that way. And now you can clip around. Now, for this one, it's helpful to sew with that front panel down so that way when you're going around your curves, your zipper is flat. We're going to baste with a 1/8 seam allowance. Again, we'll make sure that you are happy with your stitches. Yeah, you want to ensure that you do not catch any of your gussets in the seams. And then as before, we're going to go ahead and attach our binding. Again, we'll make sure that those gussets are out of the way. Now we're going to sew around this with a 1/4 seam allowance. you are happy with your stitches, now go around and roll back that seam. Undo all of your gusset tapings as you tape them. Now you can turn your bag right side out. And smooth out all your corners. And you're going to take your 2 side gussets on each side and match them up. Okay. The other side. Now we can sew these with a 1/8 seam allowance. And you can go ahead and repeat that on the other side. Make sure that you're happy with your stitches. And fold those in. Need to roll in your seams a little bit more again. Here's your front compartment. And now our Pandora Charisma is all finished. Now that our Pandora Charisma is finished, we can go ahead and work on our strap. For the detachable straps too, so the strap with the strap connector tab, you would want to go ahead and take your webbing and cut off the measurement in step 64 and then draw down the marking that's in there. You would take your rectangular ring and then fold at that marking. Now I did already pre-singe my webbing. I'm gonna go ahead and fold to enclose that webbing. And then we're going to stitch along that line. Stick this off to the side real quick. And grab our connector tab. And if you are using a little bit of stabilizer in between your little connector piece to just give it a little bit more reinforcement, I'm going to attach that now. On our swivel hook. And attach 2 small pieces of double-sided tape to help keep my webbing from slipping around when I'm trying to sew this. Now we're just going to place your webbing in the middle. Once you line up and mate the edges, you're going to stitch around the perimeter with a 1/8 seam allowance. And then as you're sewing, you can protect your hardware with a piece of fabric. I have this little foam thing around just from it scratching. That way it doesn't get scratched by your plate. And then there's how that. And then even though this has a little slight curve, I just did a normal box. I didn't worry about trying to do that little curved stitch, because I think it looks nicer. For extra security, you can either install rivets if you want it. You can do 4. I've seen people do 2. Just all up to your preference. You can also do a box stitch across. I'm going to take my longer piece of webbing along with my other swivel hook and my other connector tab and repeat the same process for one of the ends of the webbing. And now we can take, that's done. So now you can take the other part of the end of that webbing, and thread our webbing through the edge of our slider, and then take your extra little piece of webbing with the D-ring or with the rectangular hook, bring that back through. Take and feed. I'm gonna give this some extra length. And you can feed this end. And over the bar. Pull down a little bit so you can be able to fold back. And now this is the piece that you're going to stitch. And now that's our detachable strap. Here is our finished Pandora Charisma. I hope that you enjoyed making this as much as I did. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Can't wait to sew with you again. Bye.